Today's class, we are going to go over identity, and that will give us a chance to review stuff that we've done so far in this course. But expand it to the idea of permissions and user permissions. The sites that we've done so far, the pages that we've done so far, really will not be practical for a public website. It's going to be very rare that you're going to have a website where anyone can add, delete, update data on the website. Possibly some sort of intranet site might allow for that. If so, if the site was behind other means of authorization, that's possible. But more than likely, you're going to have you're going to require that people be logged in before they can change it. Now, today we're going to go over the most basic example of authorization with identity, and that is where if you're logged on, you can't do any updates. So no inserts, no updates, and no deletes. You will be able to still view the data though. Now, I just want to introduce this topic right now. Depending on how it goes the rest of the semester, we might delve into this in more detail later. But I'm covering just the very most basic way to do user authorization. You can actually build upon this, and you can have you can assign users to different groups and assign the group privileges, and it gets a lot more complex from here. Excuse me. But as far as today goes, we're going to cover the most basic example. So I'm going to go and we're going to create a news site where we have news stories, and if you're not logged on, you can view the news stories. If you are logged on, you can do inserts, update, and changes. So I'm going to start my Visual Studio. Excuse me, I'm yawning today. Go up to File, New Project. And I'm going to pick an ASP.NET Core Web app. Next, what is my project name? I'm going to call it News. I'm going to put it on the desktop. Place solution, a project in the saved directory. Yes, I am. Next. Framework 6.0. Authentication type. I am going to select individual accounts. This will build our application not based on the Windows or our Microsoft platform, but our application itself is going to handle that. So within our app, we'll be able to register for accounts. We'll be able to log in, log off, and ensure that someone's logged in before they can make any changes. So I'll pick individual accounts. I'll click Create. It's going to do its thing for a couple minutes here. Excuse me. If we look here, there's already a data context created, database context created, application DB context. Now that is where the information for the users and groups and all that live. So this has already been created. And if we look at this, we can see not much. All right, now we're going to go create our model. I'm going to right mouse here like I've done before, and I'm going to say add, do folder, models. Inside it, I'm going to add item. I'm going to pick a C# class, and I'm going to call it news story. As I mentioned before, it's good to call this sort of the singular, and you can use the plural then when you create the folder for the pages. All right, in the interest of time, I've already created this. I'm going to copy paste from this file over here. It's griping that I didn't specify a default value, so we'll just make them optional. There certainly could be more notations. It's interesting how the framework works in that it's smart enough to know if its ID is going to be the primary key to the table. So I'm going to save this guy. Now I am going to create my pages folder. And I'm going to scaffold into that folder. Now, when I scaffold, I have a choice to make. And I've read online about this, and it seems like people are divided. Whether you should put your application database in the same database context as your identity or not. Let's go and search the web to see if we can find some pros and cons. Pros and cons of multiple DB contexts. What are the pros and cons? And there's a discussion here. Generally speaking, you would keep it to one if you're just using your application database, but you might want to have a separate database context for rephrase this. And it talks about this, that each context should work pretty much separately. You should also have separate databases, and it goes on. The point is that there's some controversy about it. Not controversy is the wrong word. There's some differences of opinion on that. So we'll probably do this. I'll pick a way and we'll do it, but we'll talk about doing it the other way as well. So I'm going to go and add a new item, and I'm going to add that wrong. Add a new scaffolded item. Range of pages using entity framework. Click add. Model class, I'm going to pick news story. Database context class. I could either put in application DB context, or I could take the default, which is news data news context. That's what I'm going to do, because it makes more sense to me to have these, it makes more sense to me in this example to have that separate. But you could select application DB context and it would work just by changing this part to application DB context. I'll show you what happens, because if you pick the same context, life goes on pretty much the way that we have done it before. But if you pick a multiple contexts, then when you update the database, you have to provide some additional information. So I'll click add. All this stuff I'm keeping, I click add. It goes and does its thing. All right. Now, I have to do as I've done before, that is I have to create a migration and update the database. So I go to this. You get package manager, package management console. And I'll go in here and I will try to add a migration. This is going to fail, by the way. It fails because we have two database contexts, and we need to specify which database context we're using. Or the one DB context found, specify which one to use dash context parameter for PowerShell commands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type add migration. I want to add this, or I've added this to the news migration, news context. So I'll type in dash context, news context, and then initial migration. I have to type that in because, again, I have a separate database context for the applications data tables as opposed to the identities data tables. I could have combined it, but I chose not to, just to demonstrate this. Oh, I spelled migration wrong. And it works. Now I have to update the database, and guess what? I have to say which database context I want to update. And now it works. So I can go in and I'm going to go and add this to the navigation. Remember, please do that. I will take off points if you don't do that. Add to the menu. I'm going to go to the shared layout. I'm going to create a link to news stories. So I'll run this. And away we go. And I can go in, create new. And I don't know, type in some things for my news story, type in something for my summary. Whatever I want. I click create. And I can edit it, and I can delete it if I want to. Well, again, as I mentioned before, I can do this without supplying any credentials. And that's not very good practice at all. That's very insecure. Could you imagine the chaos that would ensue if websites allowed anyone to enter data into their database? It's a nightmare. All right. So we're going to do the bare minimum and require that at the very least you're logged on before you can make changes to the database. How do we do that? Very simple. It's only with a little bit of code. We could go into one of the pages that we want to prohibit. I'll make the change to the add or the create page first. Close these down. Go into the create. I'm going to go into the model for create. And I'm going to put right here authorize. That gives me an error. All right. And it gives me an error because I am missing namespace up here. I don't remember that off the top of my head, so I'll Google it. I could do that, or I could do this. It's always the little things that get you. That's why if you run into difficulties, please feel free to ask. And it's still telling me that that's not found. Authorization. All right, I'm going to look something up real quick. Because I know I have an example that worked under previous versions of .NET, and it's going to go to that and take a quick look. I know I'm missing something really simple. This. Okay, what is going on? Try this again, take 2. Delete this folder. Add a new folder. All right. How about we do this take two? Create a new proof that it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, you still can get screwed up. Normally, if I was working on this, not on my own, on my own and not in front of a group of people, I would spend some time debugging it. But since that's hard to do in front of people, I don't want to waste your time. I will therefore just recreate. Give us practice recreating this stuff. Get this right eventually. Am I using, okay, here's a question from out there. Let me, your question disappeared. Let me go out there and see what it says. I think I'm using 2022 to answer your question. Okay, are you using Visual Studio 2019 or 2022? Because I've had some issues on previous assignments downloading and running some of the unzipped folders on VS. Yes, I've had that problem when I've unzipped my old applications, like from a previous semester that I created in 2019 and try to access them in 2022. I'm not sure if this is related to that or not, though. But yes, I've had that similar sort of problem. If I'm understanding you correctly. Yeah, until I know what the problem is, I can't rule anything out. But I'm hoping that recreating this will fix things. Wow, that is not good. Yeah, I've never seen that one before either. Oh, and it worked this time. Swell. Okay, let's go and change layout again. I am going to, as soon as I finish this today, I'm going to run out of this room because it seems like there's a curse. There's a curse in here. Oh, I forgot to update the database and all that. Data migration and update the database. Well, it's good you guys are seeing this a second time. Hopefully this time it does work. Okay. Now I should be able to run this and I should be able to add, insert, or add, change, delete, and so on. Wondering if I didn't like accidentally delete a line of code from the other one. That's what I meant, like, could be a very small problem, but I don't want to spend time troubleshooting it, so just redid it. Okay, let's go in here into our model. And put in authorize. And now we go into create. And I get sent to the login page. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't work before, and I don't know why I have to put that full thing in. I should be able to, well, we'll fix that in a minute here. So it will not let me go in and add something unless I'm authorized. So what I have to do is I have to create an account. So I'll click register as a new user. Again, this is just a very bare bones authorization. And initially, that's all we're going to worry about. Passwords have to contain a digit. Okay, I screwed up. I did not update the identity database. I should have created a migration for the identity database and updated that, just like I did the applications. You get this register confirmation. Normally you'd get an email and you'd have to respond to a link. Here we're going to pretend by clicking this, and I am authorized. So now if I go here, create new, I can type that in, log in, and I can go and type in a new news story. And now we have a second one. Now, of course, I didn't do that to edit or delete. I probably don't necessarily want to do that to details because I might want anyone to be able to see the details of a news story. I should go and add this authorized to all of the create, update, and delete. All right, if I do that, I do not have to type in the full namespace for authorize. I'm going to do the same thing to delete. And I'm going to do the same thing to edit. I apologize for the problems that I'm having today. The step that I missed that I got that first error on is when I added a migration and updated the database, I should have did the same thing for the application DB context. So I should have, if I was more into digital editing, I would actually go and edit this video to put this before it. But I should have done this before I tried running the application. Add migration context, application DB context. Got to give it a name. And then I should have said update database. All right. I should have done that right after I did the migration and create the migration for the News 2 context. I should have created the migration for the application DB context that includes the identity. Okay, I hope you got all this. I do apologize for any confusion. You have to do something similar to this. Again, I realize this is minimal authorization, but it is some, and it's something that we can build on. We don't do it in this course, at least you have the basics of it so that you can expand upon it later. All right, that's all I had for today. We will talk to you next week if there are no further questions. Any questions? I will upload that example, by the way.